Theiss Soundshot. Insights and analysis from one of the leading law firms in Central, Eastern, and Southeastern Europe. Welcome to a new episode of the Theiss Soundshot Diversity Edition. In this episode, podcast producer Julia Tolle interviews counsels Adelina Iftime-Blagean from Bucharest and Andjelka Todorović from Belgrade on their personal experience working and growing their legal practice. Whether classic stereotypes of the legal industry being a man's world still apply, and how they experience diversity and equality at Theiss. Andjelka is a qualified Serbian attorney at law and has worked on some of the most high-profile energy and infrastructure projects in Serbia, often being one of only few women on the project. Adelina heads the Romanian employment law practice, a team which predominantly consists of female lawyers, and has worked on countless international transactions. Andjelka, Adelina, thank you for joining us today on the podcast. First of all, I know that you're both in two different offices. Have you ever had the chance to actually meet each other?
Actually, no. This is what we were discussing earlier, that it is the first time when we interact with each other in any way. We never saw each other or worked together or anything alike.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. It's very interesting. We were discussing just before starting recording that although our offices work quite closely together, the two of us have actually never had a chance to meet. I think it's because we are in different practice groups. But it's very interesting to meet Adelina and to participate today.
It's amazing. Like, we're such a big firm, and all of us have been with Theiss for quite some time, and still there's new people to meet all the time. I think that's very exciting.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we got together today to talk about your careers in law. Also, under the aspect that you both are women in a very male-dominated field. So, I would like to know, what are you most proud of in your careers?
I think I am thinking how to identify and just, single out a moment or a single thing that has happened over my career. The thing that I would like to highlight is that my key practice group is energy and infrastructure, which I think is a very male dominated, energy and infrastructure as industries are very male dominated. So for me, I would like to highlight that leading our Theiss legal team on a number of energy and infrastructure projects in Serbia and the region, being the head at a negotiating table when these deals are being negotiated, being at signings and closing deals of this type, especially when you are one of the few women in the room. I think that is something that I would definitely want to highlight as something that is specific about my career.
From my perspective, I also cannot say that I have one or two moments that are necessarily the highlight of my career. I think in my daily work, I do sort of amazing stuff when finding solutions for making our clients happy with our work. I'm heading the employment team here in Bucharest. In the same time, I have experience in corporate M&A. I handled a lot of transactions in the past and now handling not so many, but whenever I have a little bit of availability, I'm also being involved in a transaction. So I cover many areas and I have quite developed expertise, and I'm happy to be here and to help my clients and my colleagues on a daily basis.
Andjelka, you mentioned that you're sometimes one of the very few women in the room leading negotiations. Do you think you've ever had a moment where you had to convince someone to actually take serious what you were saying, what you were trying to reach, just because you were not a man in a gray suit, but a woman? And how did you handle that?
I would really like to emphasize is that those situations are happening less and less in the world, not just in Serbia where I am based, but especially in any international deals that we are engaged in. It is a scenario that happens less and less. So to sort of have a more positive feedback, that is not something that happens to me regularly or frequently nowadays. But that is something that has happened to me, let's say, a couple of years back, much more frequently. I have had situations, for example, that were very interesting to me, where I would actually make a point and address the opposing counsel across the table, and they would respond to my male colleague, which was very interesting to me because he did not raise the point, but he actually returned the point to him. I ended up responding to it, but he then, the opposing counsel, again addressed my male colleague. So completely refusing to address me across the table. So that is one of the more extreme examples that I've had. I've also had examples where I would go into meetings with our more junior colleagues who were male and who would, in Serbian language, we have what is the German equivalent of sitzen, how to address someone with more respect. And the people in the room would address my junior colleagues with in such way, whereas they would address me simply by my first name or similarly. So it was not, I think in today's world, it would be accounted as some sort of microaggression or something. It was not that serious, but it was, it is enough for my colleagues to notice and to actually point it out, which I really appreciated.
Kudos to your colleagues to notice this and stand up for you. So, what I see is that there's a lot of respect for you and your peers and amongst each other. And that is awesome. I'm glad that you foster this kind of culture. And
Yes, yes.
kudos to you for the patience with this opposing counsel to just keep going.
I think patience is key and also addressing the issue, briefly and head on. So it's not a discussion to be had in any kind of negotiation setting or any kind of meeting that you have. It's not a long conversation, but this is something that you should point out very briefly and ask for whatever behavior that you are not comfortable with. If you are seeing behavior that is discriminatory, to ask for that behavior to stop. Usually, the whoever it is on the other end would either apologize or they would be confused. A lot of times they would not even notice that they were actually participating in such behavior. So to do it in a way that it's, um, let's say, polite, brief, and just stating that you have an issue with something, that you would like it to stop, for me appears to be the most efficient solution. So it's not something that interrupts a meeting, that disrupts the flow of information, but it is definitely something that you want to bring up quickly, get it over with, and of course it's very helpful if you have a room full of people that support you in that sentiment.
Having heard Andjelka talk about these slight microaggressions, I'm sure this is something that employees in other firms experience as well. Adelina, you focus on employment law. Have you heard from cases where these kind of things have been discussed in the Romanian market?
Actually, not so much. I would say that Romania is quite balanced in terms of gender diversity issues. We actually participated with some studies regarding discrimination, gender diversity issues, and so on. And we had access to statistical data regarding, for instance, women in top positions and similar matters. And I may say that indeed this is my also my perception about the Romanian employment market. I don't feel that women are really discriminated at least in what concerns access to top positions, access to management positions. There are so many women in the boards of directors, for instance, in Romania, which I know it's indeed an issue in other countries. There are so many countries where there are laws required or that the regulators decided that are necessary in order to allow a minimum number of women in certain boards, which is not the case in Romania because this happened sort of naturally. As concerns my personal situation, I also can say that I never met very serious situations of when I felt discriminated in any way, or I felt that I do not have access to something that my male colleagues had access. So yeah, I think Romania is indeed in a good position, and from this perspective of gender diversity.
That is very interesting to hear about Romania, and I am very happy to hear that you have that kind of situation. I think in Serbia, it is. I think it is also similar in the way that it is not obvious. There are a lot of women sitting in boards. There are a lot of female CEOs, but interestingly, there is still a disparity. There isn't a lot of gender diversity in companies. But interestingly, there are a lot of women running their own businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the past couple of years. There has been a rise of female entrepreneurship, which in my view might be a way that women are really trying to fight for their own, because they could not make it in the companies, could not make it up the ladder, so they started their own businesses. This is something that I noticed in our market, and also something that I have noticed is we do have, and it is reported statistically, that we have a disparity in pay between male and female employees. So this is something that is very concerning, that we do have a pay gap, but again, in the past couple of years, this pay gap has been becoming smaller.
This is indeed also the case in Romania. My personal perception is that there is lag between the pay in women and in men, but indeed not something major in overall in overall data. Of course, there may be industries where this is more obvious, but in general, we are in quite a balanced position.
That's good to hear.
That sounds great. I know that in Austria, as a step to close that salary gap, Austrian employers have to post the starting gross salary in their job postings. So you know what the negotiation base is. That definitely has helped me as an employee seeking out job opportunities, because I can now more easily assess what I consider my own earning power and my own earning worth, and then can join negotiations much more freely, as I have seen with my male friends and peers, that they sometimes just start out with higher expectations than I would have had. And if we apply for the same job, we know, okay, this is our starting position, and this is where I can start negotiating my salary. So this, I do feel empowered by knowing what position has been assessed as.
Very interesting. As far as I know, there is a project of directive at European level in this respect. So a directive that would impose on employers the obligation to publish their salary level in terms of internal ranges of positions. And also, you are right in relation to expectations. Indeed, I also believe that women have the tendency to appreciate themselves and their value a little bit less than men. This is, I think, a cultural issue.
Yeah, I think that that might be just traditionally the case, because there are actually a lot of studies, I think, from a psychological perspective, that women are much less likely to ask for a pay raise. They are much less likely to ask for promotion. While their male colleagues are sort of throughout their life pushed to always want more and to always ask for more and to not be afraid to ask for more. So I think that traditionally this is the case, cross border, just internationally, I would say.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Women expect recognition implicitly, not explicitly. They expect for for their value to be recognized without asking this specifically in words.
Yes, I would agree with you, and I think this is where we sort of come in with our, let's say, our corporate values. And I think the mentoring between women is very important to deal with this issue, so that when females enter into the workforce, that they have good mentors and that they have senior colleagues and personnel working with them and basically giving them this drive and this empowerment to ask for more. So to teach them to seek opportunities, to ask for opportunities, to ask for recognition, and to ask for their work being valued. On the other hand, I agree that companies should intrinsically do this. They should you shouldn't have to ask for it all of the time, but at the same time to bridge this disparity, as you said, in upbringing, I think that mentoring plays a great role in corporate cultures to basically work with women and to help them be empowered to ask for more.
I agree. Mentorship is very important, and we often say women need to support women. And I know, Adelina, you lead a team and there is quite a few women working with you. Do you maybe have an example how you support your female coworkers and how you have been previously supported by other women and how you lift each other up?
Sure. I work with Elena Glodanu, with our partner here in Bucharest since forever, in Theiss since 2006, when I joined Theiss. We grew together. She was a senior associate back then, and I was an associate. We supported each other all the way, with the daily work mainly, but also, of course, in relation to all the promotion stages that we went through. And she, of course, supported me every time when I built my case for promotion. In terms of people in my team, I now have 2 women in my team and a man. My senior associate in the team is very, very nice and very competent, and she was promoted last year during the COVID pandemic, which is absolutely extraordinary that we had so many promotions during these very difficult times.
Wow, Adelina, that sounds like your team is a force to be reckoned with, full of women that deserve all the respect that they receive and are people that we need to watch out for and will bring us very far. Andjelka, anything you want to share about your team structure and the support system that you have built in your office?
Well, thank you for the question, and it was really nice to hear Adelina's experience as well. Here in Belgrade, we're pretty even split. We're almost 50-50, I think, evenly. But going back to what Adelina was saying, and I could completely resonate with that. Here, I've worked with Natasha Lalović-Marić since I joined the firm. She's a wonderful lawyer. She has been a role model for me since I joined Theiss, and I really have the privilege of working with her every day. And because we are an integrated law firm across our 13 countries, I completely understood what Adelina said about Ileana, who is a force to be reckoned with. She's such a creative mind, also incredible to work with. And Andrea Gric, who you've had on the previous episode of the podcast also. So there are regionally so many wonderful examples of women really having top roles and being true role models to us who are coming up. In the firm. When it comes to our work locally, and I would say on a day-to-day basis, I think the most important thing about my work now as a counsel is to always have my door open and to always be prepared to talk to my team and to be a good mentor for my more junior female colleagues. So basically to do for them and to be support for them the way that I had support from my senior colleague.
So what I hear is that both in your offices, women support women, the men support the women support the men, great support all around, which is amazing and always great to hear, especially in such a competitive industry as ours. And it's a great example of female empowerment in our firm. If someone came to ask you about the Theiss approach to female empowerment and diversity, what would be your quick elevator pitch answer?
My emphasis would be on equality, that Theiss is about equality and about diversity, but primarily we are about equality. We are about ensuring that both men and women have an equal position, have an equal starting point, and have an equal opportunity in our firm. So I think that would be my emphasis.
I completely agree. I cannot add anything more. As I said at the beginning, I always felt that I have the same opportunity exposure as my male colleagues.
That sounds brilliant, and I have to say, Andjelka, you put it into words perfectly. It sounded so inspiring, to be quite honest. And I think, yes, the equality, especially across 13 very different countries, 13 very different cultures, and us all coming together to deliver excellent service to our clients is just a great sign of how we can work respectfully with each other despite of where we come from.
Yeah, well, it's our pitch. Smart people working in interesting places.
That is true. So, in one of our previous episodes, and looping back to something that we discussed about earlier, in one of our previous episodes about internships, one of the speakers explained that she often feels that women, especially at the beginning of their careers, are not bold enough and shy away from tackling things and basically getting what they deserve. That might be asking to be included on a very interesting case, and instead doing background work, or that might be asking for that pay raise. Um, would you agree to this? And if so, what would be your advice to younger women just starting out in their careers in our industry?
I would not say that the new generation is necessarily shy in asking for what they want. They are certainly less shyer than we were at the beginning of our career. And my personal experience is that both men and women, young men and women, really know what they want. When something that they want doesn't happen, they find a way to change the situation. I think they are better prepared than we were for finding their way in the professional life. And I would not say that I necessarily see a major difference between women and men in the young generation in terms of their approach towards these matters.
I also have a positive outlook towards the new generations that are coming into the workforce. I think that it is correct that traditionally it is more frequent that the females in the corporate world in general, in business in general, are more stuck doing what we refer to as office housekeeping work. You get stuck behind the desk, you do more research, you are less visible towards the client or prospective clients. I think that this is something where firstly the mentoring which we discussed plays a great role. So having someone who will support you, who you can talk to, who can include you. But again, I think a part of that is really on the companies and on us as law firms, just building a corporate culture that gives more initiative, gives more room to grow to interns and to juniors, whether it is through our business schools. For example, we teach personal branding from day one. We support initiatives for client events, for various business development initiatives from juniors. So we try to instill that drive in them from day one. And I think a lot of this really does not come to the intern or the person joining. It is really a lot of times about the corporate culture of the place that you are in. Simply, I have heard so many cases of interns joining various companies or places where they just simply could not find a place for themselves because it was not a very good environment. So they end up leaving. So ultimately it is a loss for companies, and this is why I think there is such a big emphasis on creating an inclusive environment and to try and instill these values and to support juniors when joining. And this is something that has really picked up over the last few years. And again, going back to what Adelina said, I think the new generations are much braver. They ask for more at the outset, and they know what they want more at the outset, at least compared to our generations when we were starting.
I agree. I'm too a fan of the younger generation. I have great hopes and expectations from them, and I'm sure they will even supersede those. Andjelka, Adelina, thank you so much for this lovely chat about female empowerment at Theiss and in the legal industry in general. And I hope to catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Theiss Soundshot. For more information, you can contact us via email at soundshot@wolfteiss.com or visit our website at www.wolfteiss.com. You can also follow us here to receive further updates on developments in law and business from one of the leading law firms in Central, Eastern, and Southeastern Europe.